If you'd wanted to travel by train between Kenya's capital, Nairobi, and Mombasa on the coast, this is what you'd have faced. The slow, crowded journey would take up to 10 hours. Until now. This new train cuts the time to just 4 hours and brings a level of comfort passengers here rarely see.
I've traveled to Mombasa of late with a bus, and with the bus is 7 to 8 hours. I'm so excited about the new project. It's 4 hours, so I save 4 hours for other businesses.
The new high-speed rail line runs parallel to the old one, which was built 100 years ago under British rule. It snakes across Kenya's east for nearly 500 kilometres. The passenger trains can hit a top speed of 120 kilometres an hour. The project cost $4 billion and took nearly 4 years to build. China financed and engineered most of it.
We anticipate and we have estimated that GDP will grow by at least an additional 1.5%. Like I said, people talk about the cost, but if you look at GDP growing by additional 1.5%, it will mean about $1.4 billion additional to our revenues as a country.
Kenya desperately needed a major upgrade to this key piece of infrastructure. But some critics say the government has overstated its benefits and that a cheaper alternative would have been to upgrade the existing line. Kenya's debts have soared because of the railway. The critics also say similar projects in Ethiopia and Morocco cost less per kilometre, something the government denies. But the new railway is also important for China's ambitions. It's on the outer reaches of Beijing's planned New Silk Road. China eventually wants to connect East Asia and Western Europe through overland and maritime links, what it calls the One Belt, One Road project. Kenya's new rail line would eventually link up with others planned for neighbouring Uganda, Rwanda and Ethiopia, making it easier for China to ship raw materials from deep inside the African continent and to extend its economic and political clout further around the world. Azhar Sukri, TRT World.
Well, joining me now from Nairobi is the financial analyst, Aly-Khan Satchu. Ali, thanks so much for joining us this evening on Money Talks. Let me ask you something. This is estimated to improve and increase Kenya's GDP over the years. What will it do to enhance trade?
Well, I think, Kenya basically is conduit state, a transit state, not only for itself, but for a bunch of neighboring and landlocked countries. So the first idea is really to slash transportation costs within Kenya. And bear in mind, East Africa has some of the highest transportation costs in the world. So that's the first benefit. And I think also it's about positioning Kenya as that transit state into the 21st century. And I think what's important for Kenya is to really put in some first-class infrastructure so trade continues to flow from inland Africa into the port of Mombasa and to a market of 3 billion people just based around that Indian Ocean economy. So I do expect that there will be positive economic spillover effects in the order of 1.5%. Look, we all know the Chinese story. The Chinese labor's become too expensive. Everyone's been talking about the transfer of low-cost manufacturing into places like East Africa. And I think the railway is one piece of the puzzle in bringing that manufacturing into the country.
Ali, the World Bank and others warned that building this would be very expensive, perhaps unnecessarily so, and they were saying, why not just refurbish the current rail line? Do you agree with that?
Yes, I think the World Bank made some very interesting comments at that time about obviously. They were quite vociferous in that regard. There's been plenty of criticism about the price per kilometre, as you said in your introduction. Recent railways built in Ethiopia and in Morocco were built for far less on a price. And there's been a history in Africa and in Kenya of these big projects basically providing a lot of campaign political funding. So there's been a lot of criticism from that area. Some of it justified. I don't think the government has rebutted it sufficiently. So yes, there are issues around the actual project cost and the return on the investment.
Okay.
And if some of the money has not gone into the project, it will take much longer to pay back.
Ali, the Chinese financed and built this railway line, but they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. What do they get out of it?
There is this misconception, particularly amongst leadership in Africa, that China is something like Santa Claus. They're not. They are looking for a return on their investment, and they've been more aggressive about it. They've had a deteriorating credit portfolio in all parts of the world, from Venezuela to Angola. And definitely, under Xi Jinping, you can see a change in the way China is engaging. They're looking for their return, being much more aggressive about being paid on time. That's why Angola has certainly jumped to be the top oil exporter to China, because having to pump more oil in order to pay their debts. So I agree with you. The interesting point is, for China, this is, I think, a piece of the One Belt, as you mentioned, a One Road strategy, the outer extremities of it. So I think it's part and parcel of that vision. They're getting a good return. They've lent us money at commercial rates. They've got some pretty onerous control over the whole project. Money has to be paid to them first before it goes in. They've also levied a charge on each litre of fuel being sold in the country to help pay for the project. So I think from a financial point of view, they're getting a good return on their funds.
Okay.
It's a big investment into Kenya, and it's, I think, part of the strategy of engagement with Africa.
Aly-Khan Satchu, thank you so much for your analysis.